one of the hallmarks of individuals who live healthy, long, vital lives is full participation in life. And if you have an innate skill and you have the ability to help people apply that wisdom, and you want to continue to do that, decades past when most people consider the time that you should hang it up, then go for it.
Welcome to the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast, dedicated to you and your loved ones living at 100% for 100 years and beyond. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Plasker. Welcome, everybody, to the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast. Dr. Eric Plasker here, and yes, we are transforming health and longevity consciousness worldwide so that you and your loved ones, you've heard me say this before, can live at 100% for 100 years and beyond. And I have a very special guest, someone who's on the cutting edge. We found each other, we're kindred spirits, and I'm so proud to introduce you to Brad Berger of Ideal Life 360. Brad, welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Plasker.
Yeah, so good to have you here. Can I introduce you?
Absolutely, please do.
Okay, good. Brad Berger, he is a financial practitioner executive with 30 years of planning experience. He's a holistic life planner at Ideal Life 360, and he is passionate about helping people integrate their goals and dreams into their ideal life plan. He's all about helping you create freedom in your financial and life plans. And he wrote a book. I love the title of your book, by the way. Stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're broke anyway. Come on, how true is that, right?
Yeah, there's a story behind that.
All right, well, maybe we'll get to that one for sure. And where we really hit it off is Brad and I were connected by one of our 100-Year Lifestyle affiliate chiropractors out in Washington State, Dr. Tom Lamar, who's got a great practice out there. If you get an opportunity to go see him and bring your family there for great quality care, you'll like that. And it was through Dr. Lamar that you and I connected, correct?
Absolutely. He was a guest on my podcast.
Ah, nice. And actually, I was a guest on his podcast years ago, which is how I found him. So it's amazing how the podcast world kind of brings people together. And you know what I love about what you said in your bio to me, you said that you're a part of a movement to help people understand that our culture's perception of longevity and vitality are grossly underestimated. And that is completely true, because we are, with the 100-Year Lifestyle, one of the things that we say in there is that the greatest opportunity, financial opportunity of your life is your extended lifespan.
Absolutely.
And Brad just wrote a couple of articles for us on 100yearlifestyle.com, and the one that really got me was the primetime myth. That's why we're here, because you struck a nerve with me. You're going to strike a nerve with our listeners. No chiropractic pun intended with the nerve thing there. So talk about this primetime myth and how you got started with all of it.
Well, actually, I have a very good friend and colleague, mentor by the name of Mark Pace. Mark has worked in the longevity space as an actuarial specialist for most of his career. And essentially what he did is he started to synthesize a lot of material that I just think has been beautifully brought together, that really not only identifies and has the ability to educate individuals on this particular topic, but most importantly, to be able to provide practitioners like myself, life coaches, holistic life planners, with the tools to help people take action, not only realizing some of the pitfalls that we all find ourselves in, but to start to take actionable steps to change our mindset and our habits around living longer, better.
Love that. And again, kindred spirits, right? And
absolutely,
the actuaries are having a field day with this whole principle of longevity, because we started talking about it in 2007 and using those demographics to get people to change. And now we see, like in your world, I know you have a financial company as well, where you help people with finances, and you see financial planners redoing their estimates with their clients for the long haul and how it's affecting the concept of retirement, which we talk about as, it's an outdated concept in many ways. And
absolutely.
And so tell us how you see this just from a life perspective, a financial perspective. Why is this important, and what is this primetime myth?
Yeah, so it really is, the myth is part of what I'll call a trifecta of issues. There's a myth that leads to a mistake, that's largely based upon misunderstandings. But the prime time myth really talks about the fact that if you were to ask most individuals, man on the street type work, what are the prime productive working years for an adult, what they're going to give you is typically something that ranges in the 25 to 55 year range. And while that may have been true a century and a half ago, it's no longer true. That myth was essentially born from the concept of the Industrial Revolution, when man and woman was machine. And in that particular case, with very hard labor, digging ditches, lifting things, before the advent of agricultural advancements and machines, it was very possible for individuals to be burned out, worn out by age 55. But we haven't lived in that society for a very, very long time. And then if we fast forward to today, we work in and live in a wisdom economy. And if you really think about what the new prime time is, it's 55 to 85.
Yeah, I love that. And the wisdom economy, brilliant. We were talking about this the other day. We were chatting about how people are Googling and YouTubing things. And one of the things that I heard recently is that you can't get wisdom from a YouTube. You get wisdom through life experience, and you learn. And we have an acronym for wisdom, actually, that we say in the 100-Year Lifestyle. It's when innate steadfastly drives our mission, we get wisdom, meaning when you apply yourself throughout your lifetime steadfastly, you learn things and you get wisdom. And you were telling me about the other day, we were talking about how, why this is a wisdom economy, because people learn. Talk about that a little bit more, because I think as people are listening to this, they're thinking, well, I'm only supposed to be 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 years away from retirement, or maybe I'm 40 and I haven't started yet. Is my life over? And come on, you're just beginning. You're just starting to figure things out. Can you talk about that a little more? Because I think it's valuable.
Absolutely. So first of all, there's a difference, obviously, between information and wisdom. Information is free. And in fact, I do a lot of work in a variety of different areas, both in financial planning practice, the coaching that I do of individuals, CEOs, of financial advisors, et cetera. And we don't need to worry about information and the fact that information is free, because as you look at the demographics of the various generations, what they are all willing to pay for, this has been done study after study as an example, is they value wisdom. Your ability to take that information and apply it to them. So to more specifically answer your question, here is the problem. The primetime myth is largely based upon this mistaken invention that we created called retirement. I don't like the term retirement. In fact, I have replaced that term in my own practice by what I call an income access point. It is a time in your life in which you are no longer necessarily working for money, but your money is working for you. Now, that's a way for me to help people shift away from that concept, although I have my own opinions about the fact that one of the hallmarks of individuals who live healthy, long, vital lives is full participation in life. And if you have an innate skill and you have the ability to help people apply that wisdom, and you want to continue to do that decades past when most people consider the time that you should hang it up, then go for it. And if that means that you can earn money doing so, you can do so. And that mistake has led to a huge misunderstanding around how long we're supposed to live.
Yeah, and it creates a lot of stress too,
because
65 is an arbitrary number, and then now they're raising it to 67 and now 70 and 72. And even if it's 72, if you retire, what the heck are you going to do with the next 28 years? We're one of the few cultures, Brad, and you know this, that doesn't honor and respect wisdom. In the other countries, like we have a great article on 100yearlifestyle.com. In fact, when you go there, a lot of you are finding this there, this podcast there. When you go there, look for Brad's articles. Put in Brad Berger in the search bar. He's got a couple of articles. He'll have a whole series of articles that pop up related to this concept. And there's one article that we have in there about comparing life expectancy in the United States to other countries. Like Japan, for example, that's number one. And they are much, much better than we are. When you look at the graph that's on there, you see how the United States really drops off as far as life expectancy goes. And you know what they do in the other countries like Japan? They honor wisdom. They honor the elderly people who have wisdom. And, think about in your world that you're creating as you're working with people. How do people use, if they're in that place where they need to transform this consciousness to this consciousness that you're talking about, how can they begin to apply the wisdom that they learn to generate more money, to live a more abundant life in these new primetime years? What are those new primetime years, by the way?
Well, the new primetime years are 55 to 85. And again, one of the things that it gets to this trifecta of the myth of when the true prime time is, the mistake, which is this completely made up human created concept of retirement, only about 150 years old, started back in the 1880s by Chancellor Bismarck and in Germany. And that's one of the things that I'll talk a little bit more about in the article. And then there's this misunderstanding. This misunderstanding has to do with the fact most individuals, if you ask them when they're going to die, oftentimes I get two responses. One is the what I know to be, and I think that many people who listen to your podcast know to be the at birth number. So when this mid 70s number is thrown out there, it's the at birth number. Well, the bottom line is once you're born, that number is no longer applicable. You make it out of childhood, adolescence, and into early adulthood, that number shifts significantly, minimum of 10 years. And so, but the problem is, it's like running a race. If you thought that you were running, only one lap around the racetrack, but the race was really 2 laps, how would you run that lap differently, right? And unfortunately, people are living their lives and they're making choices about living based upon the fact that there's only one lap when there's really 2.
Because your best years are ahead of you from a financial perspective, from a
Yes.
life perspective. What I see in a lot of people, we have worked with a lot of doctors, we work with a lot of business people like you do. And what do you see in people when they have this realization, probably going to live longer than they ever thought, whether they like it or not? They embrace this new prime time myth and make the new prime time that you're talking about, 50 to 85, they make it their new reality. What are the changes that they can make? How do you suggest that they change their life in order to capitalize on this incredible gift of extended life?
Well, one of the things that we do is we really get to a point where, and it's a set of building blocks. We have a very robust process. I'm a huge advocate of it. Basically is a progression that takes somebody from a classical quantitative element of financial planning and moves them through gaining and developing confidence so that they know that they're going to be okay. Because what that naturally does is starts to free up physical and mental and physical space and time so that they can focus on things more important than money. So it's really important to help guide someone through that process because, if they're dealing with the what I refer to as the proverbial squid on their face, they just can't deal with anything else because there's worry and stress and anxiety. It's first necessary to get them through that process. When we get them there, where they can start to breathe easy, to really free up that physical, mental space and time, we can start to help them focus on things in their life that are more important than money. That naturally opens the dialogue for them to ask the question, what's next? And that's our entree to say, have you ever considered? It's what's that second career look like? What's that second climb look like for you? What is it that you want to do? What is your purpose? What's the impact that you want to make? Now that you realize that you have an extra 10, 20, or 30 years to live, how are you going to live your life differently? And we open with that dialogue, have that conversation, and provide them the tools to start to make those changes in their life to be able to bring that to fruition.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And those are what we would call 100-year lifestyle questions. I mean,
Absolutely.
they're great questions. We ask you, if you knew you'd live to 100, how would you change your life? And that's why I think what you're doing is so valuable for people. You're getting people to think long term. It shifts their perspective. And what's kind of cool, what we're seeing more and more, I don't know if you're seeing this too, but a lot of people now all of a sudden are taking the squid off their face on their own, and they're coming to you, they're coming to us already with an open spirit. They're seeing grandma and grandpa suffering. They're realizing, you know what, I have those genes, but I don't want to be like that. And
Right.
so they are coming prepared to change. And what are some of the questions that you ask to get them to, or what do you look for to help them maybe identify ways to, as we would say, capitalize on their past to create capital for their future?
So we have a couple of tools that we use. I will share with you that the central tool that was developed along this is something called the possibilities explosion exercise. And really what it comes down to is we need to align the conscious, unconscious, and subconscious mind. And when we do that, what we really need to be able to do is activate what we call the seeking, striving, and creating system. The great news is we were already wired for this. We were born into this. This is not something that we have to invent. It is something, however, that we need to tap. I think the way that we do that is that first we do an evaluation, a self-evaluation. It's a led exercise where individuals really start to take a look at where they are right now in a wide variety of systems in their life. Health, spirituality, relationships, money. There's about 7 categories that we look at. Where are you now? And then we start to have a fun conversation around longevity and perceptions around life. And I don't want to give the whole thing away, but then we kind of project them into the future, wave a magic wand, suspend reality, look at where they want to be, and really walk them through this process that says that's achievable. And then now that that's achievable, what doors are opened now? What are the sorts of things that we need to do? And then there's a real critical element of that, because we want to bring them back to reality, because there's this natural thing that happens in all of our minds. And it's what I refer to as the yes, but, right? Yes, I want to do that, but. And let's identify what those buts are and start tackling them.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing about but, is that you may be able to get away with saying but to this principle that we're talking about. You may be able to get away with it at 35 and then 36 and then 37 and then 38 and then 40, and you've been but for 5 years, and then you do it for another 5 years, and now you're a 45-year-old but.
Yep.
And another 5 years and you're a 50-year-old bud and a 55-year-old bud. At some point, if you don't change your attitude about this, you're going to be a butt for the next 100 years. And, that's a problem for people, because what I have learned in teaching this in the conversations that we have with CEOs and people like yourself around the country and around the world is that procrastination ends up causing a lifetime of suffering. I mean, if you're a procrastinator, and people initially were concerned about this concept of longevity, man, but then I'll procrastinate if I really think like that. Just the opposite is true, because if you're suffering because you've been a butt and you're suffering, there's only one thing worse than suffering, and that's suffering for 100 years, extended
suffering longer.
Yeah. What are some of the ways that you break people through the butts?
I always help them identify we have a number of processes and exercises and worksheets, but
give me one.
Well, one of them is we call the rapid reset, but the key to that is the end. What is a single, simple, doable thing that we can do right now to move us closer to where it is that we want to be?
Love that. And so people make one change, and then the world looks differently, because if they make that one change, we say it in a different way, and we're saying a lot of the same things. You should check out what Brad is doing here, because they're on the ground, they're doing it one-on-one, and it's important that you take care of yourself in this way. And when you make one change, you start to gain personal confidence. the
Mhm.
world starts to look different. You start to trust yourself more as a person. And then it opens the window and the door to lots of other changes that some people, and I don't know if you find this, Brad, but do you find that sometimes people are afraid to verbalize what they want to do long term, or say what they want to do, or make that commitment because they're afraid they're going to fail, or maybe they had an experience of not succeeding the way they thought that they should?
Well, it is. And I will share with you in another article that I wrote for the 100-Year Lifestyle is the culturally conforming conveyor belt. And that is, I think, one of the issues that there is this perception of acceptance. We as human beings want to be accepted. The problem is if we're wanting to be accepted into a broken system, then we're going to stay broken. It takes courage, right? And that's one of the things. You really need to have a champion behind you and a community, which is what we're building here, right?
Absolutely.
Which is a community of support that says, you know what, I'm going to break away from convention and norm. And we need that because it's very easy to get sucked right back in to the negative thinking and you know, the 40, the 45, the 50 butt thinking that we've just talking about. And we have to be willing to risk relationships with individuals. We have to be willing to risk, you know, what other individuals might think about us because we are taking a bold step into changing the way that we are choosing to live our life, the way our life was designed to be lived.
Yeah, and then you go from one community to another community. It's not like you're abandoned in the world. That's what the thing, when you start making choices, you find new communities that think in the same way that your new level of thinking is important. And so it's exciting to understand and to know that you are a part of this community, that we're kindred spirits in this way. And, you know, people get concerned about breaking relationships. They think that if they move forward into this new paradigm that you and I are talking about here, that they'll have to completely sever and break those relationships. And that's not true. You just end up relating to those relationships differently. Can you talk about that a little bit? Because that's important. I think that's a big fear that people, when they make these leaps, they're afraid they're going to be alone and how they're going to keep those other relationships. Talk about how people can evolve in those relationships.
Well, you know, it is one of the areas that we talk to individuals about. And again, I'm a big believer in single, simple, doable steps, right? And it's always an admission and a recognition that change in ourselves will create change in others. And some of it will be very positive. For the most part, will serve as an inspiring example.
Yeah, you become a leader
of what's possible. There will be other individuals who will question, you know, what you're doing, and it could create strain. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but I had an individual who's very close to me. I was having a conversation with them, and it was, you know, it was repeated, this concept of, well, I'm not going to live that long, or I don't need to worry about that because, you know, I'm going to be dead soon or whatnot. And this individual spent a lot of time around me and my family. And I just had to have kind of a bold conversation with them. And that was, here's the deal. You've got to stop it because that's poison. And I can't allow that around my family and those who are closest and dearest to me, because that is not the thinking that I'm trying to have. Now, the good news is we had a close enough relationship that we could have open communication. I'm happy to say that that individual has turned the corner and is part of this process. But, you know, relationships in general require work, right? At the same time, it is a two-way street. I don't believe in toxic relationships, but I do believe on working on relationships. And I think having a clear understanding of what your purpose is, what you're trying to do, and how that individual can support you in your journey, and how you can support them in theirs, is a dialogue worth having.
Yeah, no question. And everybody gets better for it, even if it
Absolutely
creates a little bit of separation for a while. Everybody hopefully will come back around, circle back around. And it's amazing when you come from a place of love and authentically, truly wanting to make a difference and wanting to have everybody win in the long run. To have conversations from that perspective is completely different than having conversations from a place of anger or criticism
Right.
or ridicule or those things. And I want to segue a little bit here because I neglected to mention your family in your bio when I introduced you, and I reminded when I look at it that you enjoy spending free time with your family. Tell us a little bit about your family, and you also say you, as a hobby, you like inspiring youth in aviation and flying seaplanes for fun.
Yes.
Fun is and family are key elements of the 100-year lifestyle, obviously, and I'm assuming Ideal Life 360 certainly includes family and fun. So talk about your family a little bit and how do you apply some of these principles in your family life? And then what the heck does flying seaplanes with youth have to do with all of this?
Well, first of all, I'm just a big believer. As I like to say, I'm just a big kid at heart, and I'm never going to give that up. To me, what I mean by that is there really is a very blurred line between work and play and family time and work time. It's just all great, right? And so what I've tried to do is find things. I'm a very passionate individual about articulating values, organizing those. I have a values staircase. It's a values elicitation exercise that I work on both myself as well as others. And, one of the things that I'm always striving to do is find ways to integrate my interests and my passions into, quote, my work, right? Both work that I'm compensated for and work that I do for the community. So I was at a very young age interested in aviation, started as a general aviation pilot in my teens, soloed when I was 16, had my pilot's license when I was 17. I really wanted to find a way, as I was a successful practitioner, to integrate that into to my life. I live in the Pacific Northwest. Seaplanes are a very Pacific Northwest thing.
Sure.
I am a partner in a seaplane. I take clients flying. I have property in Eastern Washington right on the water where I can fly my float plane right up to the beach. I take clients there. I take my family there. I introduce individuals to the joys of flying. With regard to the youth in aviation, what got me into flying is an organization called the Civil Air Patrol. I've been involved with that organization both as a teen and then again as a father with a teen who is in it. So I'm still in the Civil Air Patrol, and I take cadets, young kids 12 to 18. I'm the chief orientation pilot for our squadron. We take them up and introduce them to flight.
That's beautiful. I love that. And, I find that a lot of people, we talk to them when they become alive again as a result of these types of conversations that we're having. And a lot of them, what they do is they reconnect to things that were meaningful to them when they were young, whether it's the music or in your case, it's flying. For me, it was sports, always involved in football. And then when my kids started getting into sports and my youngest son got into soccer, that football, the real football, they say, volunteering for all of the teams that he was on and adjusting all the kids and applying what I love to do as a chiropractor in that part of my life to helping these kids perform at very high levels. And, it's fulfilling when you do that. And so how much do you see people when they get in touch with the things that you're doing, the work that you're doing, they do reconnect to that youthful spirit and the things that they remember from the good old days?
Oh, it's very common. And in many cases, it was, had they known, and this is the real issue, had they known, right, that they were going to live much longer than they were going to live, they may have chosen an entirely different path. Now, I'm not a believer in regret. We make the choices we make based upon the best information and decisions we can make at the time. But there's no reason that we can't go back and say, why not now, right? Let's look at what it would take to make that a reality, and start to incorporate that into your life, either personally, or maybe that's the next thing that you're going to do. It's what brings me back every single day to do the work that I do, is the change that I see in individuals and the joy that they're experiencing, and their fire is relit.
Yes. And that fire is a magnet for everything good that will happen to you from
Yes.
that point forward. So powerfully and well said. And I'm going to shift gears again here because I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I believe you're adding a lot of value to our listeners. And I want to circle back to the other career that you have, which
Yes.
is your financial planning company and what you do there. We talk a lot about in the 100-Year Lifestyle, creating a 100-year lifestyle balance sheet.
Mhm.
So you create a 100-year lifestyle balance sheet, looking at your balance sheet, where you are right now, what are the assets and liabilities, the money, the resources that you have, and where is it allocated? And then where do you want it to be over the next 10, 20, 30 years, or by the time you turn 100, and then organizing your life with passion and love and spirit and energy with your talents and abilities to help fulfill you as a person while also creating capital for your future.
Mhm.
Talk about what you see in people financially that make this shift where they start to do more of the things that they're passionate about and they love. They organize themselves around it. They become happier. How do they change financially when they do this?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about capital because I'm a big believer that there are at least three types of capital that we all have. We have our financial capital, right? We have our personal or intellectual capital, and we have our social capital. And so it's important that all of those things work in concert with one another. A lot of people haven't given a lot of thought the fact that wealth is one form of capital, but there
Financial
are
wealth.
other financial wealth, right? But there are other forms of wealth that we have and other types of capital that we have. But one of the things that we really try to stress to individuals is most people do not have a firm understanding of what it might take, right? In order to sustain their lifestyle. They are very much in just a accumulation, or they're not doing that kind of phase. But what they really don't know is what does the distribution plan look like, right? So it's one, and that this is the issue. Most individuals in what I'll call generically the financial services industry, a lot of them, I talk about this in my book, Stop Trying to Keep Up with the Joneses, They're Broke Anyway, which is the financial services industry is not built for what you and I are talking about. And so it really takes some additional effort to find a practice, an ensemble practice that can deliver a truly lifelong, comprehensive financial plan. Because most of the industry is built on accumulation and the preservation of that money, I'm sorry to say, for themselves, not for their clients. And you really need to find somebody that's not only good at accumulation, but the distribution. Here's my analogy. It's a sports analogy. I'm not a golfer. I appreciate people who love golf. It's not my thing, but I think people understand this. The financial services industry and most people are playing life on the first 9 holes of the golf course. There are very few people who understand what it's going to take to play the back 9 successfully. And so you need, what we're finding is we're applauding and congratulating individuals for the well played first 9. And our job is now to say, how do we prepare you to play that back 9 and to be just as successful?
Yeah, I love that. And that's so important. It's again, kindred spirits. Here we go again, right? It's, like we say, people will spend their whole first 50 years of their life trying to accumulate, and they give it all back in the second 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, trying to get their health back because they destroyed their health along the way. And, a lot of our doctors around the country, our chiropractors, taking people on this critical transition from a crisis care mindset to a lifestyle care mindset. And if you knew you'd live to 100, how would you change your life? Thinking differently, that this is just not a 9-hole game, to use your analogy, but we're playing 18 holes, which is 100 years and beyond. And give us one tip as we start to wind down in time here. Give us one tip that people can do from a financial perspective that can help them to start thinking about the back nine too, to be able to distribute the way that you're talking?
Well, I think that the number one tip that I would share with individuals is really think about what it's going to take, right, to live the lifestyle that you want to have. Have someone help you develop a comprehensive financial plan to determine what that is. And I would say, but there's good news, right? And that good news is, even if you think you're not where you want to be, you might be surprised. And if you're really engaging the help of a competent professional, I'm a big believer in professional teams, then they can help sort out what that is. So that single, simple, doable step is stop guessing.
Love that. And to circle back from how we started this conversation, is wisdom is the most valuable asset that you have. I mean,
Yes.
We've seen doctors and people and entrepreneurs that we have worked with where in the last 10 years in this current 10 years and decade, they've done more, contributed more, made more, supported more, contributed to more than they did in the previous 30 years combined. So we have a good man here doing a great job out in Washington, making a difference for you, hopefully, on this call. Brad Berger from Ideal Life 360. And Brad, great job today. I want you to all follow his articles on 100yearlifestyle.com. He's going to have a series of articles coming up. And tell us how people can reach you directly, Brad, if they want to talk to you to get their specific, very focused plan with you, learn more about what you're doing. Where could they go? How can they find you?
Well, first of all, ideallife360.com has got a lot of resources on there, as well as many of the programs that we offer. It gives you a flavor and a taste of where we're coming from and what we do and what we have to offer. I'm very transparent. My contact information is there. You will get me if you reach out. Brad at ideallife360.com. Our phone number is listed on the website. Again, that's www.ideallife360.com.
Awesome, Brad. Well, I love that we're getting to know each other in this way. You're doing really good stuff. You come highly recommended to me, so we appreciate that so much. We appreciate your support for the vision of what we're about, transforming health and longevity worldwide. And so special thanks one more time, Brad Berger, ideallife360.com. Check it out. Also, spend some time on 100yearlifestyle.com. Share these podcasts, share the information that's there. Share our social media pages, all that good stuff. Thank you so much for being a part of this time together. And Dr. Brad, not doctor, right? But Brad Berger, thank you one more time. Dr. Eric Plaster, signing out. Thank you so much for joining us on the 100-Year Lifestyle Podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have topics that you want us to cover, people you want us to interview, maybe you have some stories that you want to share, stories of yourself, loved ones, people in your life, we would love to hear from you and share your story. Please email us at my100@100yearlifestyle.com. And remember, nobody wants to get to 100 or even 50, 60, or 70 for that matter, crippled, broke, and alone. So please share the 100-Year Lifestyle, all of our podcasts, social media pages, website, with your family, friends, and coworkers so they can take this journey with you. And until next time, adjust your lifestyle. Live your best life today and every day on the road to a sensational century.